Hi, I'm Alexis Anisi, and I'm going to be doing a video on the infectious disease called anthrax. Okay, so to start off the video, we need to talk about what exactly anthrax is. Although it is highly infectious, it is actually not contagious whatsoever. We will later discuss how to actually contract the disease in 4 different categories later on in this video. The number one thing to know about anthrax is that we get it from animals, domestic or wild. Domestic really just means like farms and stuff like that, and of course, wild is pretty self-explanatory. If you look at the right of the screen, you're going to see what it looks like underneath a microscope. You'll see the gram-positive rod-shaped bacteria, which pretty much all gathers together and pretty much forms the infectious disease itself. So we are now going to continue on to the next proportion of our video, and we're going to actually discuss the 4 different ways to actually contract anthrax. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the types of ways to contract the disease anthrax. It's going to be split up into 4 different categories. We'll start with cutaneous, and then we'll move on to inhalation, and then gastrointestinal, and then the very last one will be injection. So the first category we're going to talk about is cutaneous, and pretty much if you look in the heading, it has the word cut in it. So pretty much it's going to be contaminated animal products, or what I'm going to call it, which is spores, get into your skin. This is going to be the most common. You could fall down, cut your knee, cut your hand on something, and it's the most easiest for the anthrax to get into. It's usually common on the head, neck, forearms, hands, just stuff you use every day, like your hands, stuff like that. You have little cuts on your hands you might not even notice, so those spores can actually get into it. So if you look at the diagram over on the right, it's just going to be a list of what it would look like if you did get it through your skin. So in the first or second day, it's going to look like a bruise, just something normal, stuff like that. And then to the 3rd or 4th day, the skin is actually going to start open, and it's going to look like almost a black middle. But the most common thing is that these are actually not painful whatsoever. It's almost like a skin lesion. You can't feel them. They don't hurt. And then when it starts moving on into later stages, going on to a week, it's going to get all bubbly and gross. So this is going to be cutaneous, which is the most common one for humans. Okay, so the next category we're going to talk about is inhalation. It's pretty much inhaling the spores into your body. This is going to be the most common in work environments. All it takes is for some dust to be blown into your face or soil and stuff like that. Even though our noses are meant to filter that stuff out, somehow it finds a way to enter your lungs. Primarily, it's going to be happening in the lymph nodes in your chest before spreading throughout your whole entire body. The toxins get into the smaller compartments in your chest, and after they reproduce and the bacteria thrives off your body, the spores are transported and they make the toxins that are super deadly. This is one of the hardest ones to treat due to the fact that it is in your lungs, and medication and antibiotics can only do so much for your body, especially in the lungs. Okay, so the third category we're going to talk about is gastrointestinal, which is pretty much the meat of the animals that have the infectious disease. So by consuming raw or undercooked meat, so pretty much not cooking your meat all the way. If you get medium rare, you most likely want to get it well done due to the fact that it could have a chance, or a small percentage, that it could have the deadly disease in it. As soon as it's ingested, it starts to affect the throat and the esophagus. Then later, as your body digests the food, it's later going to be in the stomach and intestines. And then once it gets into the intestines, your body is going to pretty much absorb the bacteria, not knowing that it's there, and then later on affecting your whole entire body. So the last category we're going to talk about on how to contract the disease anthrax is called injection. So pretty much it is going to be the fastest and the most deadly way to contract the virus. It's also identified in some heroin drug users. A lot of people, when they buy drugs from other people, they don't know exactly what is going to be in the drug that they purchased. Luckily, it's never been reported in the United States. The only thing is it has similar symptoms to the cutaneous, as we discussed earlier in the video. So you're pretty much going to get the sores on your arms with the black middle. It's going to be the most deadliest because you're injecting it right into the vein or wherever you inject it. And it's going to result in the most deadliest way. Okay, for humans to understand how we get anthrax, we have to focus on the primary source, which is animals, and how they get infected. I put a small picture in the video just to briefly explain how animals get infected. So bacteria produces dormant spores, which are not active, so they can live in the environment like soil for a long time, decades, stuff like that. They can live through crazy amount of heat, super cold. They're always there. When spores get into the body of the animal or a person, they can be activated and turn into active growing cells, which they thrive and reproduce. When they become active, the bacteria, like I said, can multiply and spread throughout the body, producing toxins or what you would call poisons, and cause severe illness to the animal or the human, and later to cause death. Okay, so earlier in the video, we mostly talked about symptoms, mostly with the cutaneous category. You know, a small group of blisters, skin sores with the black middle, stuff like that. But what people actually don't really realize is that anthrax actually has flu-like symptoms, such as coughing, runny nose, fever, body ache, throwing up, stuff like that. Even though that you might have those symptoms doesn't necessarily mean you have anthrax. A lot of other diseases and stuff have flu-like symptoms, but it's also a precaution on how long it goes on for. Anthrax is deadly. It kills if you do not treat it. So even if you do show flu-like symptoms, you should always get it checked out by the doctor, even if you don't think it's, that bad. The best thing is that anthrax has never been reported from animal meat in the United States. There has been reported of bioterrorism, which I will later discuss in the video. So most likely people in the United States don't get anthrax from meat, since we do get our meat locally or wherever you buy it. It's usually in the United States. Okay, so what most people want to know is how they get diagnosed. There is a list of different ways how people can get diagnosed with anthrax, such as blood tests, skin lesion swabs, spinal fluid, respiratory tests, CT scans, chest x-rays. Most likely, if doctors are thinking you have anthrax, they will end up doing the whole entire list of things that I listed on the screen. But if you looked at the picture, you're going to see a variety of chest x-rays. going from A to D, starting at A, just the normal chest, a little bit of sign of anthrax, moving on to B, progressing to C, and then finally D, where anthrax has fully taken over the chest, the lungs, everything. Although anthrax is not common in the United States, we still have treatments and preventions to prevent anthrax from becoming a threat to us, such as antibiotics and antitoxins. Doctors right now don't have an exact way to get rid of anthrax. They use antibiotics and antitoxins just to try to get the body to motivate itself to try to get rid of it. As people know, every body works differently. Mostly, the best thing people can do is get vaccines. So the vaccine only protects people from two of the categories that I explained, which is the cutaneous and the inhalation. They leave out the gastrointestinal and the injection. Although injection and cutaneous is both pretty similar, the vaccine does not work for the injection itself. So my favorite one to talk about is bioterrorism, which is pretty much when a disease or substance or anything like that is used in a terrorist attack on a different country from, of course, terrorist. Anthrax falls under that category due to the fact it can be created in a lab and it can last for a very long time. It's easily released, so you can release it easily, such as an incident a few years ago in the United States. We had an incident where anthrax was made into a powder and was put into letters and mailed to certain people across the United States. A few people died, many survived. If you look to the right, you can see just an example of what some of the letters looked like from, the terrorist. Since it was a powder, you can't really see that it was anthrax, nor does anthrax have a smell. And of course, like I said, it's been used as a weapon. Super deadly, super easy for it to be passed along. Of course, the category that bioterrorism would fall under was, of course, an inhalation. The powder gets into the nose, gets into the lungs. It can be used in different ways, such as injection, just selling drugs that have anthrax in them. So to conclude this video, I hope you learned something new about anthrax, or learned what anthrax was, and hopefully your interest will make you want to look it up and learn more about this infectious disease. Thank you.